Welcome to episode 84 of Rubbish Talk with me, Alasdair.
And me, Jane Bond.
And this week we are going to talk about the waste reprocessing capacity report that's just been done in Scotland. It's only about 160 or 70 pages, and I'm not quite sure either Jane or myself have read it in full, but we'll
Alasdair, I'm
we'll
sure
try our
you
best.
have read it. I'm sure you've gone through it with a fine-tooth comb. I've kind of skipped through it, so we've got some of the headlines. I'm going with the stats more than anything else. But before then, we have news. And one of the ones I've got here is, I think it's from Dumfries and Galloway Council, and they've been looking at their household waste recycling centres, and they're looking at potentially putting a cap on the number of visits to the household recycling centre after one customer booked nearly 250 visits in the space of a year. Now, 250 visits to the waste recycling centre, now that's keen. So you're either, it's either a dating site, it's a dating site, or, there's a potential there for commercial waste being hidden, perhaps? Or am I being too cynical in that one?
He's maybe just doing a big renovation in his property chain. You're maybe just being cynical.
That must be a big property, a big renovation.
It does show you these, either the booking systems or the APN, what is it, the NPR cameras, that pick up the registration, that, the councils are getting much more data. And I know South Ayrshire, I think you're allowed something like 50 or 100 trips a year. And I was like, surely you're not producing enough waste to need to go to a household waste recycling site for, 50 times a year, like once a week.
Do you know, I've been doing some training. I've been doing the household waste recycling centre training, and some of them were saying, like, yeah, obviously there are potential traders in there, and they do go and talk to them. But a lot of people, quite a few people, just go there for a chat. Older people perhaps.
Right, the social.
Yeah, they just take one bag of rubbish and go in and have a wee chit chat and stuff like that, and it's part of it's more their social interaction as well. But I would say 247 bookings is a bit excessive, although it does say 218 were complete, 25 were cancelled, and 4 were no shows. So, there's obviously something, it's not quite got the hang of it yet. Anyway.
The other bit of news we had was the extended producer responsibility. So, Jane, we sat at the CRWM conference last week, and I learned all about extended producer responsibility, and this is where the producers that put the waste onto the market, if you like, are having to pay into fund, and then that's been redistributed to the councils to do the recycling. But in my view, the mad bit about it is the fund is not ring-fenced. So it just goes into the council coffers. So quite a lot of the councils are getting, 3-4 million, and the reality is that'll probably just be swallowed up in operational costs. And the poor householders will pay the premium because the retailers aren't going to pick up the tab themselves. They're going to pass it on. So, but this is the new charges for the producers will face in 2026. They've now been published. So there's lots of, as we found out last week, there's lots of moving parts to it. There's an organisation called PAC UK, which is a government entity effectively, and they do mainly the redistribution. But there's another organisation needs to be set up to do the bit between, as I understand it, the bit between the councils and PAC UK.
Yeah.
Is that your interpretation, Jane?
Yes. Well, it started off very complicated. And then actually when we got SEPA and the Scottish Government to have a chit-chat about it, they actually made it quite a bit simpler. But I do think the issue with the passing it on to the customer, it could be a big issue in terms of increasing food costs, basically.
I think the good bit that's still to come out of it is the producers need to look at the recyclability of their materials.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be good when that starts coming through. So rather than packaging their stuff in all sorts of complex multi-laminated layers, they're going to have to look at, they're going to be a sort of traffic light system, green being good, amber being not so good, and then red being not good at all. I don't know if you noticed, I can't remember whose slide it was, Jane. He'd obviously picked an AI picture because it was a picture of a traffic light which showed, I can't remember which way it was, but I think it was red, green, amber in that order from the top.
Oh, really? No, I
Did you pick
never
that one up? No?
noticed that. No. Yeah, I was obviously
can't remember which
too
speaker it
busy
was.
concentrating on what they were saying. Yeah. No, it was interesting, and hopefully it'll reduce the amount of packaging or reduce the amount of non-recyclable packaging anyway. So
I think
yeah.
the worry I've got. I was going to say, Jane, the worry I've got with these things is there's so much about, the producers put this in the market and we're going to cover this so much. There's so little talked about the sort of practicalities of the collection and the actual waste operator sorting all the material out. That seems to get lost in the whole thing. It just seems to be, we put it on the market and these recycling companies will be able to sort it, and we all know the challenges of that.
Well, we'll be talking about that later on, won't we? Oh, waste infrastructure chit-chat. Just a reminder, everybody, that the Waste Environmental Authorisation Scotland regulations came into force on the 1st of November 2025. So, again, if you're looking to do any waste management licenses or PPC permit variations or whatever, then this now needs to be done under ESA. And there's a lot of guidance on the SEPA website. So, yeah. Just a reminder. Don't say we didn't tell you anything.
And they were advertising on Clyde Radio, I believe. So SEPA was on the radio.
Yes, they were
advertising all the changes.
Yes, and I heard them on Greatest Hits Radio as well. And I was like, there we go. Yeah. So obviously trying to make everybody aware.
I think the online portal that they're using is working, but I think I've had a wee bit of feedback from a few people that are struggling with a few aspects of it. But in fairness to SEPA, it's early days, and I'm sure these minor things will be sorted out.
Yeah.
So last item we've got is COP30 is taking place in Brazil this week. Starts on Monday the 10th of November and runs to the Friday the 21st of November. And this is actually 10 years since the Paris Climate Agreement. And the deal then was to restrict global temperatures increases by 1.5 degrees. I think most will reckon that that's totally unsustainable. It's not going to happen, which is a worry. And it seems like quite a few of the big polluters are staying clear. So America's one of the ones that's staying clear. So in terms of the environment and climate, it's a bit of a depressing time.
Yeah, I think it's kind of on the back burner, isn't it, really? Sorry, bit of a pun there. Yeah. I guess so. Do you remember when we had COP? What was it? Which one was it that we had in Glasgow? I can't remember which one it was.
23 rings a bell?
Yeah.
COP23 rings a bell.
I can't remember. That was great. That was interesting because there were so many people running around Glasgow being green. There we go. Hopefully they'll come out with some good discussions and we'll find out if there's anything changing. Doubtful. So what about you, Alasdair? You've been on the radio again. What was this one about this time?
I was on the radio on my birthday.
Bless.
There we go, the highlight of my birthday.
Did they wish you happy birthday?
So they never wished. They never actually knew it was my birthday. I never told them. So this was to do with the landfill. Well, we've talked about this before. The landfill ban not coming in. Well, that's wrong to say that. It is coming into force on the 1st of January 2026, but it is not going to be enforced by the regulator until 1st of January 2028. So this was in the back of the BBC Dispatches programme.
You were on that, weren't you?
I was involved in a few months. Yeah, I've never told you that.
Was that your debut actor?
So it's in the back of that. So they were just following up on that. I think one of the interesting points was that there was a question at the end. It was actually quite long. It was probably 7 or 8 minutes, which for a radio thing is quite long. But there was a question about how these green policies are costing the economy a lot of money. And I was just making a point that if we actually put material in the correct bins, the savings to Scotland PLC would be quite significant. And I think the interviewer was a bit sort of surprised about that response. So yeah, we'll share it. We'll share the audio if anybody's interested. So
of course they'll be interested. So crikey, another chance to hear your dulcet tones.
Absolutely. So I think that's us for the news. So we thought we would look. So this report was produced by the Scottish Government. And it's produced under the Circular Economy Scotland Act 2024. And its aim is to map out current planned, processed, reprocessing infrastructure for Scotland. As Jane and I were talking earlier on, it's actually quite complicated to do. So in a sense, I think it's quite a good report. It goes through a lot of detail, highlights one of the things I think is quite good. It highlights how much waste is produced, and then it highlights how much is actually recycled and recovered, and it shows, in some cases, it shows the gap between them. I think the infrastructure, I think it probably overestimates the infrastructure. I think quite often with waste management, you get, for example, if you look, it mentions, lots and lots of companies doing composting, but from industry knowledge, we know there's actually only probably, 20 composting sites in Scotland that are doing any sort of decent tonnage. So I think sometimes it's quite difficult to look at data and pull out the key facts. So that's the reports. I think you've got some info, Jane, and how many sites are covered and so on.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, they've obviously taken the information and data from SEPA and things like that. So it says there are 169 licensed reprocessing facilities in Scotland with a further 14 planned. And that varies by material type, organic waste, construction, demolition, glass, and all that sort of stuff. But I think the thing with that is it depends what your definition is of reprocessing facilities, because it seems to include, baling and sorting and baling, which to me, yes, there's that kind of definition of treatment, but it's not really, because all you're doing is putting it into a bale and shipping it somewhere else. So, reprocessing, you would think, is there to actually sort out the material so that it can actually be used in the future. So like shredding plastics, for instance, or crushing glass so that it can be used as sand, or into the glass factory at Alloa. Even we've got quite a few metal recycling facilities, but again, they're not necessarily reprocessors unless they're, obviously some of them are, because they're shredding and bringing the metals and whatever straight back into a facility that can reprocess them back into metals or aluminium or whatever. But particularly for like plastics, film plastics, there's this. We were talking earlier about the producer responsibility and the fact that packaging is getting taken back, and a lot of that is film, but that's difficult to separate and also difficult and expensive to reprocess. I think some are well served, some materials such as construction and demolition waste, there's quite a lot there.
Well, I was going to say we're going to find out, because we're going to run through them, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
But one of the I was quite interested in the overall figures. The report starts with, they reckon the waste and resource sector contributes 750 million to the Scottish economy, and the full material value chain had an estimated value of 23.5 billion across the whole of the UK.
Wow.
And recycling alone is estimated worth approximately 7 billion to the UK economy. So quite a significant sector. And across the UK, we employ 147,000 people. That was actually the 2021 figures, and in Scotland it's 12,000 people. So quite a chunky size in terms of industry and contribution. Another bit to bear in mind is the waste sector probably impacts on every single business in the UK in some shape or form.
Yeah,
which I think sometimes gets forgotten.
Yeah, everybody's got waste. Everybody has to deliver.
It's a bit like
yeah,
it's a bit like electricity. Electricity, phones.
water,
sewage, water. It's one of these sectors that impacts on everybody.
So we've got some more stats here. There was an estimated 9.55 million tonnes of waste generated in Scotland in 2023, which, I don't know, we're a bit slow on getting our data, aren't we, really? If that's 2023, we're now nearly at the end of 2025 and we haven't had 2024 data. And of this, 5.9 million tonnes was recycled, which is 62.2%, which is actually, when you're looking at it, that's a whole of the waste. So it's not just your household waste or whatever, it's everything. Across 15 material types, we generated approximately 3,617,000 tonnes of material for waste from all sources. But the waste reported, I don't actually understand that. Total waste managed. Anyway, it's a lot of waste. And I think the thing with that is there's a lot of waste there there's a lot of waste that's recycled, but a lot of waste that still could be recycled if we had the facilities and the infrastructure. When we were looking at it, not all materials can be recycled if it's contaminated. So if you've got material contaminated with food waste, for instance, that's been difficult to recycle. So yeah, drinks bottles, plastic pots, tubs and trays, paper and card and glass packaging, those are the main things that can be recycled or are recycled. Our food waste is the largest component, which is where we need our composting facilities.
Yeah, so it's interesting how the material streams that went through. So some are I suppose really obvious, and some are newer waste streams that we've probably not talked about before. So what we're going to do is we're going to just run through each of them briefly. Try not to make it too stat heavy because it is stat.
Oh, we love stats. We love our stats.
The first one I'm talking about is plastics, and you've probably heard Jane and I banging on about this loads of times that we don't have a domestic capacity for plastic recycling. We bail it up and then we generally send it for export. Well, out of the 270,000 tonnes of plastic generated 2023, around 90,000 tonnes was recycled. So you can see there's a huge gap there between what's actually been generated and what's been recycled. Only 12,000 tonne of that is reprocessed in Scotland. I'm not even sure where that 12,000 tonne does get reprocessed in Scotland, but that leaves 188,000 tonne that is still recoverable from residual waste. So in terms of plastic, we're not doing that well at all, really.
No.
And as I said, it's very much down to we're literally just bailing it. We're not even really going down further than grading it and granulating it and so on to increase the value.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the barriers behind that are the contamination and the mixed polymers, how much it costs to separate it, and like you say, lack of downstream. I mean, we talked about this before, you can recycle anything, but it just depends on the finances as well. If there's nowhere to take it at the end of the day, you're separating it for no purpose. And then there's all the mixed polymers, which hopefully the EPR will help with to make it more, so that it's more recyclable.
Consistent.
Yeah, well, yeah, you'd like to think so, and stop too much of the mixed polymers. So hopefully we can actually invest in that a bit more if there's more coming through. It's market demand, but again, it's up to the market, isn't it? So,
but the market's not very good at the moment, so that's a challenge.
Yeah, well, that's right. It's a problem child, basically, isn't it? And realistically, it's
Next one is aluminium and steel. We've got a good high recycling rate, but it is mostly exported. So in terms of aluminium, 200,000 tonne generated, 180,000 tonne is recycled, but only 19,000 tonne of that is recycled in Scotland. And in terms of steel, 424,000 tonne and 412,000 tonne is recycled, but only 33,000 tonne domestically.
Yeah, and that's a shame because if you recycle an aluminium can, it's 95% less energy used for recycling that than it is for actually producing the material to recycle from the ore. So aluminium is one of the best things to recycle. But we just haven't got any refining industries or smelting industries in Scotland. Everything's outside Scotland. We used to have a big steel industry, here, but obviously that's all collapsed. So most of it is exported.
The one success story is the aluminium smelter at Fort William, and that's powered by hydro. So that's one of the challenges with aluminium recycling is its energy cost. There is one success. I remember being at a conference, it must be 5 or 6 years ago, and whoever had owned that facility was planning all sorts of things for it, but I don't think they ever actually got the funding to make that happen. Next one is paper and card. We export the vast majority of it, so 377,000 tonnes generated, 210,000 tonnes recycled, but only 8,000 tonne is actually reprocessed in Scotland. 96% of it's
he was talking about paper and different grades of paper, and he was talking
You're
about
going to be asking me which
I know.
episode that
no,
was.
I'm going to let you do that while I witter on. And I think that's the thing. There was paper mills in Scotland, but they're just not taking that recycled paper because of the different, because of the poor grades, possibly. And I think it's just, we need good quality paper to go into these mills. Otherwise, it ends up as just as toilet paper. But like you say, you can never have too much toilet paper. But it's the term recycling, isn't it?
Rod Patterson, episode 66. Senior Purchasing Manager at Ekman Recycling. There you go. If you want to know all about paper recycling and the challenges of it, have a wee listen to episode 66.
Absolutely. But I think it's a bit of a misnomer. Yeah, I was going to say it's a bit of a misnomer, isn't it? Recycling actually means export. We put it into bales and then we export it. We don't really recycle it.
Well, that's what came up at the event we were at last week, Jane, I think we need to get better at classifying, making the difference between preparing material for recycling and actually recycling it, and actually put a premium on where we're actually recycling, and that would help drive the market. But that's an argument for another day, I think. So we're at number 4 here, and we've not found one yet. So, glass. So mostly recycled domestically. So there we go, wee success story. 207,000 tonnes of glass. 131,000 tonnes recycled, 99,000 tonnes of that in Scotland, and 32,000 tonne exported. And this is largely down to one recycling facility. Now, it says on here Viridor Newhouse, which has come directly from the port, but I'm pretty sure Viridor no longer own that site. It's run by somebody else, but for the life of me, I can't remember who it is.
But I think you've got reprocessing, but again, all that does is split it into different colours. When you're talking about actually reprocessing, for me, that's the glass plant at Alloa. That takes recycled glass and puts it into their puts it back into bottles. That's you could say some of the other places do recycling for glass because they crush it into aggregate, crush it back into sand. So you could probably say that's the same, and that's more about I would say that's more about reprocessing than just split it into different colours.
But that going to this is what we've talked about before. So glass going into glass bottles is sort of high value use. Glass getting crushed into sand is then
low value.
A sort of low value recycling. And saying that, there is a little niche in there for crushing it. Similar, it's a really good water filtration media. So there is a little niche for creating water filtration media that is really useful for the water treatment industry. Almost a success story there, we think.
Yeah, I think so. I would go with that one.
Yeah. Wood is the next one. So we produce 568,000 tonne, and 200,000 tonne is recycled, and the rest gets burnt and chucked up in the air. So 348,000 tonne is under energy recovery. So of that portion, 182,000 is recycled in Scotland and 18,000 is exported. Now, I know at the moment there's real issues in the wood market because I think it's one of the plants down south, or a couple of plants are down are not operational. And when I say the plants, I think the energy recovery plants. So there's a real issue getting wood off site at the moment.
Yeah, I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? It's like what we said before. You've got it's got to go somewhere, and you'd like to think that we've got wood, with good recycling energy recovery. But it'd be quite nice if we could actually, reuse the wood for something rather than just burning it.
One of the ones we did also have. Who was a gentleman we had from the Wood Recyclers Association, Jane?
Oh,
remember that one?
Yes, he was interesting as well.
Yes, but they estimate that 97% of wood waste is actually reprocessed in the UK, which is pretty impressive.
Which is good. So so do we get a tick for wood then? We can do wood.
I think we get a tick for wood. I suppose, we're recycling a pretty chunky portion in Scotland. So, you get a tick for that one.
Even if it is being burned.
Next one is fibre-based composites. So this is your what I would call your Tetra Pak, your drinks, your orange juice carton. Yeah. And the benefit, the reason the food industry love these is it's a way of getting the material into a carton without getting the bugs in there as well. So that's the improvement for that sector. But there's actually very little recycling facility in the UK. There's one paper mill that actually takes the material. So anything produced in Scotland is then exported. I think we're not even sure how much of that actual material we're actually recovering, which is a bit of a challenge. And I know in South Ayrshire, I think I'm allowed to put it in I would probably need to check if I'm allowed to put it in my plastic and metal bin. You used to be able to, I think you still can, but I think it's one of these material types that people are never quite sure where to put it.
Well, yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? And the trouble with that material is there's so much to it, because it's paper on the outside, and then sometimes it's foil, sometimes it's plastic on the inside, so it doesn't leak out everywhere. And it's just trying to separate that. Because I know we were talking to Tetra Pak quite a while back and having a look at where they took theirs, and they were quite interested in how much Tetra Pak was being taken out or being separated, or that could be identified separately. Because I think they've got a facility in Halifax, I think, over there. But yeah, again, it was getting the data was quite difficult.
I'm just looking at the report. Based on SEPA's data, 2 sites treated 14 tonnes of fibre-based composite. 14 tonnes isn't going to make a huge dent. 5 tonnes of this was reported to be recycled, and the rest for other recycling. And in the UK, it's estimated 29% has actually been recycled. So in terms of whether that material is actually being recycled or not, so in theory it can be recycled, but in reality it's not really happening. Next one the report looks at is electronic waste, so waste electrical and electronic equipment, waste. It is recycled, mostly it's exported, so the estimate is 40,000 tonne treated, 15,000 tonne of that in Scotland, 25,000 is exported, and there's a big, large untapped volume, they reckon, particularly in small appliances and IT equipment.
I tell you, the amount that people throw away. I mean, you see in recycling centres, and you see at the transfer stations and sites, that one of the sites down in Irvine, it's just like so much electrical equipment that's thrown away. And then you've got to dismantle it and take out the hazardous components, and there's a data management if you've got IT systems and making sure everything's wiped. But all of that, there's so much critical elements in there, critical metals and stuff like that, like lithium and cobalt, gold, I think it's vanadium as well. And to actually be able to get that out of the circuit boards and stuff like that would be quite important going forward when we've run out of raw materials in the earth and we're moving on to our second and third planet. But mining, we need to mine landfill sites. We could take out a few, start digging them up.
No, what I was going to say, you see all these countries looking at mines for critical metals and so on, but there's a huge amount of this stuff could be recovered. So the obvious one, we interviewed Bruce McLean from CCL North and Restructure back in episode 19. And he's got a great operation splitting all this material out, but it's really time consuming and labour intensive, particularly when you get down to the smaller items. He's literally got staff sitting dismantling vapes to get the batteries out and to get the electronic equipment out of a vape. We're producing, you use that stuff, but it's actually really difficult or not difficult, but it's complicated and time consuming to dismantle. Next one is a similar issue, batteries, growing issue, minimal infrastructure. 14,000 tonnes of batteries generated in Scotland. Reckoned 7.7 thousand tonne recycled. I'm not quite sure about that number.
They might be separated, whether they've recycled it.
Yeah, 1.6 thousand tonne in Scotland, 6,000 tonne exported. 11 sites handling batteries. I actually don't know a single site in Scotland that is actually doing anything with the batteries.
Unless, because they'll keep going up in flames.
There are sites which will collect batteries and they'll send them for treatment elsewhere, but it's quite a complicated area. And I think I've probably ranted on here before about, a huge amount of investment goes into, designing batteries, making batteries better, but we also need a bit of research into how we can actually recycle these a bit easier and a bit better.
And a bit safer. Because I think as
Yeah.
well is when you're recycling them, you have to kind of like crush them, don't you, and try and pull out the different elements, and then you end up with this black mass and whatever you're going to do with that. But I mean, there's going to be an issue when all the electric vehicles start running out of batteries, and all the batteries need to be recycled from them, because they're it's quite a challenge. Even the battery recyclers don't like those.
Yeah, so there we go.
Mm-hmm.
And the next one is a totally new one for me. I've heard mention it is renewable energy installations. So I presume this is looking at wind turbines that are past their life, or solar panels that are past their life, and how we actually recycle them. And again, this is probably a bit like the batteries. Let's have a little bit of research into this. Let's actually look at what we can do with it, rather than just assuming that we can deal with these things. So there's currently no dedicated large-scale reprocessing in Scotland for either batteries or wind turbines, which some of these are already getting to the end of their life.
There's some remanufacture going on, or there was a while back. But I think the thing is, we've got so many wind turbines in Scotland that actually getting a reprocessing facility or a remanufacturing facility would be ideal. It's certainly not short of wind turbines.
It's mad. They're saying that wind capacity installed in 1990s will be coming to the end of its operational life in 2015. So that's already happened. It's already got that, and we're still. So that was 10 years. I was thinking, when I was reading that, I was thinking that was 2025. So 10 years on, and we've still not got a strategy for managing these things. It's a bit depressing, isn't it?
It is a bit, yeah.
So the next one to look at is organic waste.
Oh, this is your
and this
favourite.
is the one that flagged this flagged a wee bit to me. So it talks about, where is it? Lots and lots of sites, didn't it? I can't find the actual number. But so in terms of Scotland, there's a total potential of 1,690,000 tonnes of organic waste. 931,000 tonnes we've actually recycled. 19,000 tonne we export. And it mentions that's processed via compost and anaerobic, 300 licensed sites, or 300 plus licensed sites. Reality, this is where getting the data is a bit tricky, because the reality is there's no way 300 sites doing large-scale composting or anaerobic digestion, and probably the better figure to take would be the 20 composting sites that have been certified to pass 100. So that's the standard to make the compost to, and the 11 AD plants are certified to pass 110 standard. And these are probably the main ones that are putting the food waste and organic waste through them. The other sites, the other 300 sites, are probably smaller, sort of community compost and really small scale compost in a facility, or just transferring, for example, food waste.
Yeah, still a lot of food available though. I mean, when we do our waste compositions, there's like 30% still
huge.
Food waste. So if you get all of those, get everything out, you definitely need more capacity.
Just I'll keep banging on about less than 20% people using a food waste collection system.
Yeah.
And 30% of residual waste being food waste. Next one is textiles. The report here is a largely untapped, poor domestic capacity, produce an estimated 130,000 tonne of post-consumption textiles.
Just masses of
That's a
clothes.
lot of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. It's all this fast fashion stuff.
No, I don't have that problem, Jane.
Me neither, to be fair, but
60,000 tonne disposed through residual waste streams, 40,000 incinerated, 20,000 landfill. Remaining 71,000 tonne was processed through recycling collections or donated or sold online. But we've talked about before, a real challenge with fabrics in terms of material types and so on.
There's so many different types, isn't there? And it's all these. I mean, people have tried it. They've tried these like hire shops for dresses and stuff like that, and it's not really happened because people want things. They want to have things, not just sort of have them for a week or whatever. But I love a charity shop. I've told you, lots of times. But yeah, there's a lot of material going on in the fashion industry. But hey.
And the next one is mattresses. It says here a small but difficult waste stream, but then the figures say approximately 600,000 mattresses disposed of in Scotland each year. That to me is not a small waste stream.
No, it's a lot of mattresses, isn't it?
As somebody that is looking to buy a mattress for
Pretty expensive
my son's
as well.
bedroom at the moment, well, and you know what? See, try and get them to take back the old mattress is next to impossible.
Yeah.
So I think mattresses are absolutely ripe for a take-back scheme where if you sell a mattress, you must take it back and you must arrange for the old mattress to be recycled.
Yes, no, absolutely.
The mad thing was mattresses. So there are companies in Scotland that will recycle mattresses. The Hamilton Waste site, and that's now owned by Biffa, and there's a king-size mattresses in Glasgow who do it as well. Now they will take the fabric off and then they'll shred down the metal, but because it is springs, it is really difficult to chip down the metal if you like. So it's a lot of work to get the value out of the material. But when I used to run the landfill sites, mattresses were always a pain for everybody. What happened with them in the landfill site is they used to get caught around the compactor wheels, and this mattress, the metal from the mattress would just, eventually your machine would just get ground to a halt. Latterly, with landfill, you got more and more mattresses because if the landfill sites didn't like them, the waste energy guys certainly didn't like them. So they don't go into a waste energy plant very well. So you end up with piles of them at a landfill site. So they're a real problem stream, and I would disagree that it's a small waste stream. I think 600,000 mattresses a year is a pretty big waste stream.
Yeah, quite difficult to do stuff with it, isn't it?
And then the last couple they looked at was construction materials and concrete, and much of that is recovered. The estimate is 970,000 tonnes of concrete, and almost 100% of that was recycled in Scotland, and that's generally used as an aggregate in civil engineering. And you only need to look. There's a police station that the office overlooks, and it's currently been demolished. And out the back, they strip off the brickwork, they strip off the concrete, they're crushing it on the actual site, and then it'll be reused on another site.
We can be a big tick on that one, can't we? We do construction waste well. What about tyres?
Yeah. Well, the only problem with the construction side is where you do have hazardous material coating bricks, like different types of paints and things like that can become really problematic. Tyres, I was a bit suspect about the tyres one because it says we've got some handling capacity. We don't really, as far as I know. I think we're, in some cases we're baling up the tyres, generally sending them for export. There is some granulation where you granulate down the rubber and get the granulated rubber and the metal out of it. But a big portion of that is exporting. I think tyres is one of these really depressing waste streams where everybody that buys a tyre has to pay a disposal cost in it. And we've never used that disposal cost to really create a proper recovery target.
Well, do you know what's interesting? One of our clients was telling me about how they'd been taking the rubber and they want the pyrolysis and taking it back to the rubber and the oil. So they were saying this is in theory that's a really good circular thing, but they were taking it to the refineries and they didn't want it because it had too much chloride in it. Too high levels of chloride. So it was kind of like, right, okay, that's a bit shelved. The idea's there, that's a brilliant idea, but now we need to work out how to get rid of the chloride. So I don't think it went any further than that, which is a shame because if you could do that, that would be circular.
But all that's happening is we're sticking it in containers and sending it abroad, and they're burning it and not worrying about the chloride.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's more about the actual oil that comes out and being able to reprocess the oil from the rubber, not just burning it.
Yeah.
Anything else?
So there we go. I think that's us done. I think that we've done this today. I think
we've done it.
It is lots and lots of information. Some good information in there. I think real positive stuff. And I think if we're looking at where we want to invest in Scotland, there's certainly some gaps in there in terms of where we're actually not capturing material, and there's also bits where could we have a facility in Scotland actually doing the recycling. could we have a John Ferguson's plan for having a proper recycling infrastructure for plastic in Scotland, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I think plastics is the biggest one, isn't it? But again, that's the biggest risk and the biggest kind of how to reprocess it, what to do with it.
I'm just desperate to try and find John Ferguson's episode. Episode 37. That was a long time ago. John Ferguson, Head of Strategy at Bin Eco Park in Tayside. There we go. About at least a year ago.
Yeah.
So I think that's us. Have we got a rant? I don't think I've got a rant this week. I think I'm in best behaviour this week.
Your best behaviour? No, I'm not. No rant really, apart from we just need to get more infrastructure in Scotland. And I think, do you know what annoys me is that it always relies on the market, and the market doesn't do anything until the last minute, until it actually knows there's secure policy and all this sort of stuff. And I think we start something, but in strategy wise, but we never kind of like finalise it or finish it. It's always like kicked down the park. But anyway, that's my opinion.
Your rant for the day.
Yeah.
So I think we'll just finish off. By the time this episode goes out, we will know whether Albion Environmental has been successful at the Investors and People Award in London.
Good.
Because myself and Mia, our producer, are going down for Wednesday night. So Wednesday night we will find out if we're a small company. There we go. Small company from business a year, 5 employees to I think it's 50 employees.
Well, so I think good luck with that. I think we'll be doing well anyway. You know, even if we don't win,
we're in the top 5 at least anyway.
Okay, that's good.
Absolutely,
we can get Mia,
we're in the top 5. So
we can get Mia onto the podcast talking about it next time. Then
she'll be spending 2 days with me this week, so we'll get her convinced. So that's us for this week. Next week we have no clue what we're going to talk about, but we'll come up with something. I know one thing I was going to mention was last week, as Alasdair and Jane were at the CRWM event, lots of people talking to us, lots of people saying they listen to the podcast, they love the podcast. And I was saying to them, well, why don't you give us a wee share? Why don't you give us a little shout out? Sometimes it feels like myself and Jane are sitting in a dark room talking to ourselves here. So if you do listen and you do like it, give us a share, give us a shout out, give us a comment, and give us some ideas as well, because doing this weekly is becoming a challenge.
Yeah, Alice has to think about more and more things to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you.
Brilliant. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode. See you again next Thursday at 4 p.m. Don't forget to follow, share with friends, and send us your feedback at hello@rubbishtalk.co.uk.